Hello,
All right.
everybody.
Hi,
All
everyone.
right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. We will preface this by saying that we've determined that this case is now affecting the planets and the universe. And so if there are any technical difficulties during our show, we can just blame it on the Karenread trial. I mean, why
There we
not?
go.
We are here today with Lauren Conlin. Most of you guys probably already know her, but I need to give her this formal introduction because she's one of the coolest people ever and has done some really awesome things. So I'm going to actually read most of this because I didn't even realize all of this. So I'm going to read it. So Conlin is a podcaster and reporter with a focus on true crime and pop culture. I think you did pop culture first and then kind of got into the true crime, which is very cool. You can read any of her written work on grunge.com, nikkiswift.com, redlibertymedia.com, and popstyletv.com. That's just a few, and we've listed all of her stuff in our description. So if you want to follow her on everything, go for it. She is also are you a producer of the podcast Outlier podcast?
Yes, I am.
Producer and host. It's all her. I was going to say, I don't think I've seen anyone but you on there, so that's cool. She has covered high-profile celebrity deaths like Brittany Murphy, the deaths of O.J. Simpson, Aaron Carter, Matthew Perry. She's interviewed a ton of people. We could do a whole show just talking about your experiences with interviews. Diane Keaton, Alec Baldwin. She has interviewed survivors of serial killers. Her podcast reporting has been featured in Elle Magazine, People.com, Page 6, The Today Show, Perez Hilton, and more. She wants to make a difference and cover stories that no one else will, which I love about you, Lauren. That's so cool. She was previously on-air talent at WABC Radio and WOR Radio in New York City and hosted a music and pop culture podcast with Jeff Timmons of 98 Degrees. Very cool. And pop culture podcast called Lauren Interviews. How do you have time to do all of this?
I mean, I don't have time. I'm late every day to pick up my children. I have technical issues that I can't work out beforehand. I mean, it's like, yeah, I can't.
It's crazy because, and thank you for taking the time to help us out and to be here with us. We're new to this whole thing, and so thank you.
Well, you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Well,
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's guests like yourself that really help us a lot, though. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Lauren, KarenRead, just it's a lot to keep up with at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you guys said you wanted to discuss this case, I mentioned to you, and I was like, "Are you sure? Are you
She did say that.
So I came in fairly late. I had a friend. I'm from the Boston, New Hampshire area, and I had a friend reach out to me. I think it was the end of December, and he's like, "Why aren't you covering the death of Officer John O'Keefe and KarenRead?" And I was like, "This is crazy. I've never heard of it." And so I looked it up and I was like, what in the world? I was very perplexed. And so I started looking into it. I started asking questions on Twitter. And what I do and what I believe that is my forte and what I do best, I don't know everything. I actually don't know anything. So I rely on experts to help me out. And so hence comes, my podcast where I like to bring in experts and ask questions that have experience in law enforcement, in being a defense attorney or being a prosecutor or being a forensic scientist, all of the above. And so I started digging through the facts, and I think I did the first official podcast about Karen and John in January. And a few people warned me, and I thought nothing of it. They were like, I don't think you really want to touch this. And I was like, well, I'm interested, and it's sad, and I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, oh, now I get it. And truthfully, I took a break for, I think, like 2 to 3 weeks. And again, a police officer is dead. Somebody's brother, son, somebody is dead. So I'm not making this like my issue or my problem, but the harassment I was facing and the constant just digs at my character. I was just like, holy moly. I was like, I was not ready for this. This is not worth it. So I took a break, and then I kind of jumped back into it with the trial. So if you're not, if you haven't followed this since the beginning, 2022, there's a lot of documents to go through. There's a lot of interviews to go through. There's a lot of dates. it's crazy.
It's
So
crazy.
I spent a lot of time doing that. And now with the trial, it's been really, sorry, I'm trying to center myself.
No, you're
So I
totally
don't go
fine.
too far off camera. With the trial, it's been sad to watch, and it's been frustrating in my opinion. I mean, I can't imagine being John's family throughout all this
Right.
and just
Mm-mm.
hearing. I mean, what got me the other day, and I'm obviously going out of order, but it was when Juliana Nagel was testifying about the black blob, and then it's like the fact that she didn't think to say anything. That whole thing, I was just like,
Right.
oh my gosh, what if John's mother thought that could have been him? How would she feel that
Oh,
your
yeah.
sorry drunk ass was like, well, whatever, and knowing
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean? The
Mhm.
next day, it's just like, I mean, and there's so many things just about this trial, but that was something that I had thought about, and I was like, this is a lot. And
Right.
the fact that, so like, we're just now hearing about this. All of a sudden, somebody may have seen a blood, and then it's also like, let's just, in my opinion, we shouldn't even think about that because nobody else saw a black blob. The drunkest girl did. So
Right.
yeah, right.
It's a lot to
like,
interpret. It's a lot to interpret. And so you know, I avoided this case because from the get-go, from like a year ago, because I was like, this is too complicated. And I don't know. I was like, I just don't want
Mhm.
anything to do with this. And I didn't realize how heated it was getting. And
Yeah.
then once I realized I can't really avoid this, I read one article and then I started watching the trial. And
yeah.
so I don't know a lot of this like ancillary stuff. I don't know about a lot. Like I'll see things pop up on Twitter, and for the most part, right now, I'm like, okay, none of this is true because I
Yeah.
don't know what is true.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's like coming into it, knowing all of this, all of the other stuff, like having read all of that, and what's this like
Mhm.
for you, knowing sort of a lot more of this background?
Well, I mean, the thing is, for me, like, I don't consider myself necessarily an expert. What I've realized is a lot people that believe that she's guilty and people believe that she's innocent. They
Mhm.
seem to be able to debunk each other. However, I do feel like the people that believe she's innocent tend to debunk the people that state that she's
Mhm.
guilty a bit more, because they go on the people that believe she's guilty, they go on the simple facts of, and listen, this is what a prosecutor would say. They'd say, yeah, she hit him. She's the only one with motive to hit him. She stated, I hit him. All these
Right.
things. That's
Yeah.
what they're kind of going off of, and they're saying a conspiracy theory that doesn't make sense. This 50-person conspiracy theory. Well,
Right.
me personally, I don't think you need 50 people for a conspiracy theory. I think you need
Mm.
2 or 3 people. You need some idiots, and then you need people that are oblivious.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I get that part, and I've heard prosecutors say usually it's the simplest thing, it's the most
Scott says
obvious
that.
thing,
It
that
is.
it is what it is, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
in this case, I'm not so sure that's the case, because there are so many holes.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's funny, the people that go back to just saying she's guilty, she said she was guilty, people heard her say that. Well, that's when I say, that's when you go and you question the credibility of some of the witnesses,
Right.
Mhm.
and the fact that, I've said this before, like, sometimes I know that something is not my fault, but I like to blame myself for it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's for the simple fact to hear someone else say it's not your fault, because it feels good to hear that. It feels
Right,
good
right.
to hear someone say
You.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's me. That's me in my experience. And then, you've got the whole thing. Well, did Jennifer McCabe, and I don't remember who she was at the time, Carrie Roberts, did someone say to
Mhm.
her, could you have hit him? And then she said, I hit him. I guess I did. I don't know. I don't remember, because
Right.
she's hysterical. I think there are ways to interpret that, just like there are ways that people are interpreting. Well, of course, Colin Albert could have fallen on his, like today, on his fist. He could have broken a fall with his fist.
Right.
Is that likely? I don't know. Maybe. Is it likely
Mhm.
that she questioned whether or not she did it because somebody said it out loud? Maybe. All
Yeah.
of this is possible. So it
Yes.
just kind of gets to me when people are not exactly open-minded about it, where it's like, well, why is it okay on one side, but it's not okay on the other side?
Yeah,
I think it's really,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry,
Go
Rich.
ahead. No,
I
go ahead,
think it's
Scott.
really, we're almost halfway through, probably within the next week or so, we'll be halfway through, Lauren. But I think it's really early, in my opinion, for people to start saying one side or the other for sure. I mean, we haven't heard the medical evidence yet, and I think
That's
that'll
key.
be very interesting. And I think what's going to happen there, and I kind of want your take on this too, is when they get to the medical examiner evidence, Lauren, and, the state presents their piece, I'm pretty sure that the defense is probably going to have someone of their own expert to come in on the medical stuff too. So what's your take on that? I think it's going to become a battle of the experts.
Yeah, and I've totally said that before. I'm ready for the experts here. I think something to note is, the medical examiner, they work for the state, obviously, and they work for the government. And generally I find that medical examiners, they do sort of want to match the story of, I don't know if it's the story or the facts that the police are stating that happened. And in this case, the police are stating that John was hit by a car. And I remember early on, the medical examiner said something like, or gave a quote, that the injuries don't match being in a fight. And I personally questioned that, because that's not a medical examiner. I don't think that's something they necessarily say, what it doesn't match. You know what I mean? I'm like, if you're a medical examiner, you state conclusively what you believe these injuries
right, most consistent with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, not necessarily what they're not consistent with. So that was a little weird, where I was like, is that a normal thing to say? Not that I've ever heard. And I guess just in terms of the battle of experts, I mean, I think a lot of this might be tough as well, because the crime scene, it wasn't preserved at all. And regardless if it's an accident, if it's a homicide, whatever it is, when someone dies, when there's a fatality, you got to preserve it regardless. I mean, I'm not a police officer, and I understand that, where it's like, anytime if there's a fatality, you don't just, I believe it was Julie Albert who stated that just not even 2 hours after they left, she was driving up the driveway, dropping off donuts, whatever.
Right.
No trace of anything that occurred, a few hours earlier. And I was like, man, that is not right. That's tough.
I've seen sloppy investigations before in my career, Lauren, and, we've talked about this. Rachel and I've talked about it, and we talked about it on our last show as well. It's my opinion, and it's easy to sit back and Monday morning quarterback an investigation, because I'm not there. But there were so many things that were messed up about this initial investigation. And my point is, it's really, really hard in any case to overcome really sloppy police work. And that's what this was. I mean, they waited 19 months to interview some of the witnesses that were at the house that night, Lauren.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I agree with you. I also believe that, until you've actually visited the crime scene, it's really hard to make a determination of what happened or what didn't happen. You know what I mean? I feel like that's such an important thing. You have to be there. You have to look at everything, and you have to sort of process that and understand that before you can kind of go in and say, this did happen, this didn't happen. However, I think that for me, what's happening just in this trial that's become a bit frustrating is I do feel like the judge is very one-sided. I found myself just being really surprised at certain things. I was actually surprised she said yes today to those videos.
Me too.
Of Colin Howard being shown. I could have sworn, but I mean, maybe she kind of realized, like, okay, I need to give,
Was this the way she was saving face after realizing, oh, I'm kind of, we're going to break every time we're in the middle of cross, and we're,
Right. Well, and then going back to what Scott just said about some of the witnesses not being interviewed, until a year later, X many months later. Well, this is what she claimed essentially opened the door to allow Allie McCabe's testimony of being harassed on the stand.
Yes.
And I was like, wait, what? That is, in my opinion, I was like, that's the same question they've asked everybody. So then why wasn't, why didn't Nicole Albert talk about being harassed?
Right.
Or why didn't anyone else say it? Why was it that you had to ask the young girl who is obviously, and I felt so sorry for her, obviously
Me
nobody
too.
should be harassed, but like that wasn't, I was having a hard time where I was like, is KarenRead on trial, or is Turtle Boy on trial, or is I don't understand what's going on here. Like it just, that felt strange to me.
Yeah. Well, I said right before this, Lauren, I was like, I kind of feel like I wouldn't even know who the defendant was if I didn't already know. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, no one's even mentioning Karen's name. It's not even, they're not talking about her at all. I mean, I keep forgetting that she's part of this, which is not good. Like, that's not good.
No, that's
I mean, it's good
exactly,
defense, maybe.
and
Yeah.
same with Officer O'Keefe. It's like
Yeah.
you have to just feel so terrible that this has
Awful.
become such, excuse my language, a shit show.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm sorry, if this were my child, I'm like, this is a circus. After hearing pig DNA yesterday as well, I'm like, I'm utterly confused.
So that's, yeah. So that's what yesterday, that whole thing for me thinking, so did we ever know who sent, like, who took the swabs of the shirt? This is what I want to know.
So
Do you
yeah, I
know?
mean the swabs were done by the medical examiner. I think.
Okay, yeah,
Definitely
that's
on,
very unclear.
absolutely on the Commonwealth side, and
Okay.
John's actual arms were not swabbed. His
That's what I
actual
was going to ask you.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
don't
why?
I
Somebody said
no.
somebody said those arms were screaming to be swabbed, and I'm like, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
look,
to
I've
my
played some
knowledge,
really, really
they
dumb
weren't.
CSI computer games, and even
Mhm.
I know that, okay, that you swab the wound.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's really important because it's like you have to obviously you swab the arms, you swab the shirt, you measure the cuts,
Correct.
and you measure the what's on the sweatshirt or whatever he was wearing. Oh my gosh, and I remember posting about this like months ago, and I called it like a hoodie. Oh my gosh, you should have seen. It was like, because you can see him wearing it in the bar. I called it a gray hoodie or something. I had somebody be like, "Are you fucking retarded?" Like they were like, "That is so not a hoodie. When I go to put on a hoodie, it is like," and I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "What?" I couldn't
Yeah.
believe that people were so nasty over
the
me calling some.
hatred.
They said the most horrific things to me, the R word like that. And they said, "Are you
Yes.
over me calling something a hoodie?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I thought it was." But
But that's just wild. So this is the psychologist in me being like, what is, so everybody views these cases through their own lens. Everybody does, every case. This one though, there is some lens that people have, or there are
Right.
these different lenses people have that are like being triggered so hard by this case. And I don't know if it's the corruption piece of it, or if I'm not sure why it's become so passionate and personal for
I
people.
think
What's your,
I'm sorry, I was just going to
go ahead.
interject real quick. I think part of it is the whole social media piece too, and the Turtle Boy piece and all of that. And I mean, Karen to many has become kind of a rock star. I mean, you got people outside the courthouse every single day cheering her on. And I think that's part of it too. It's just kind of, anyway, yeah, I'll just stop at that. What do you think,
Yeah.
Lauren?
yeah, no, I think so. For me, what I've realized is that the people that think Karen is guilty, they are sickened by the fact that people think she's a rock star.
Mhm.
And I think, I think what I've gathered is the people that believe she's guilty, they believe that the Alberts and the McCabe's were very wrongly accused, and that they were being harassed for the last year, and that their lives are ruined and they are innocent bystanders and they just don't deserve any of this. That's what I
Mhm.
think the anger stems from. And it's, I recall this with the case of what was the girl and who disappeared from Myrtle Beach? I'm drawing a blank. Brittany,
Okay.
Brittany Drexel. In
Okay.
that case,
Yeah.
they had wrongly accused these brothers of Brittany's disappearance and what
Right.
happened to her. And when they actually found out who did it, the brothers, their family sued the county and sued the state. So I think that people are just upset that the people who think she's guilty are upset that other people are being blamed. I want to go back and just say that the people who are saying, oh, like Turtle Boy did all this and the defense did this, well, that's not necessarily true, because I don't know the exact timeline, but a few months into this, the defense got a call from a PI named Stephen Scanlon, and Stephen Scanlon was, I don't want to say he was friends with Brian Albert. He was an acquaintance of his. They boxed together. There's pictures of them on Facebook from like 30 years prior and some, charity boxing thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but anyway, he called the defense and said, your client's innocent. She's being framed and this is what happened. And then he was asked to sign an affidavit and yada, yada. And then he said no, and he just kind of disappeared. And I had sent a freedom of information request to the Norfolk DA's office about him. I just wanted to see what, if there's any emails that could be sent that were exchanged about him. I want to know what happened. Why would you make this call and then all of a sudden be like, never mind? And they denied me. They said, I forget exactly what they said, but it was like, I don't know. It was something like it would affect his personal life if I were to see these emails. So, yeah.
Interesting. That's really interesting. You
But
actually
that's
got
where
that
it came
response.
from. It didn't come from Turtle Boy. It didn't come from the defense themselves. They received information.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? So with what happened with Turtle Boy in the courtroom, so he was kicked out during testimonies of particular people, and then they had listed Proctor as one of those people. I said to Scott, I was like, why are they listing Proctor as one of those people? He's not scared of him.
Right.
Like, and then she amended it. I don't know if it's today or yesterday. My days are all kind of crazy, but she amended it to say no, he can be in there for what do you think as a journalist, as a reporter, what's your take on that decision and then the adjustment? And I know, you don't have to like, you don't have to give your opinions about people.
I don't care. I'm like, oh, whatever.
You're like, how much worse can it get, honestly?
I guess they are basing this on the intimidation charges, since charges were essentially filed and it's, I think he still has a court date. I guess that's what they were basing it on. I just don't, I'm kind of like, he's just going to sit there in the back and report on it like he's done this entire time. And whether he's in the courtroom or not, he's still going to tweet about it. He's still going to write about it. He's still going to report on it. So what's the difference? I think it's just making some, you know what I mean? Just more of a distraction, more of a clown show. It's like,
why bring attention to it? Just let him be there.
Move on. Let's focus on Karen and figuring out what happened. So
I don't know, you guys. I kind of have a differing opinion on that, and Rachel and I've talked about this a little bit. And
it's wrong,
I think differences.
Scott.
I know, right? Whatever.
I've always threatened that I'm going to get in a fight with Scott on here, so I got to try.
It hasn't happened yet. You keep threatening. So I kind of think the reason the judge did that is because it was, she felt like the witnesses that were intimidated by him shouldn't have to basically see his face and have him staring at them in the trial while they're testifying. I think that's the sole reason the judge did that. And honestly, in my opinion, I think that was a pretty good call on her part, but that's where we differ on our opinion, Rachel. But
no, I get that. I get that too.
Yeah.
But I also feel like
totally see that. I can totally see that, Scott. Absolutely. Absolutely. I can see why. I think I just don't have a lot of faith in this judge. I think that's my own personal bias here, but I totally.
But I'm also of the mind that, he was charged, but he hasn't been convicted.
Right.
I get it. Like, okay, if someone's harassed you, you've reported this, now the charges are being pressed, and now you have to be in the courtroom with him. But I don't know. It's just something about it is like, I'm glad she amended it, so at least it's not including the police officer, because the whole point of it was so that his victims didn't have to.
And I wasn't certain if he went, quote unquote, after or asked these questions, with his phone to Allie McCabe or anything like that. I kind of thought it was just the parents. I mean, obviously Allie McCabe looked traumatized over it. So I can't speak to, but I just was like, I don't know the backstory with a lot of that and what happened. So
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
totally.
But
That was part of the thing that I had to look up later because I was like, who is this guy?
well, I
What's
do
going
know,
on?
when reporting on this case, I felt like I featured Aiden on my show, and I featured Jennifer Coffindaffer, and I featured literally the complete polar opposites. And when I featured Aiden, I had a bunch of people tell me how disgraceful I was, and that they were going to unfollow me and tell their entire crime community to do the same. And I was like, okay, well, then maybe everybody should unfollow every single news outlet and every single, like, I just am like, my mind is blown how each side can just be, just so mean to people, I guess,
Yeah.
where it's like, what do I have to, I'm just literally doing my job and getting all sides of, it's just,
Right.
yeah.
So, but you say, so this is funny too. And I know Jay's watching, he's experienced some of that. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I just love some of the posts that Jay puts up about what people have said about him. 'Cause it's like so absurd. But I today was like, just the sort of, I thought was a discussion, right, was going to start. And then somebody came at me like super hostile, and like I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to respond like, oh wow, thank you. Like, thanks for your perspective. And it was like they toned it that, like, people are just coming out of the heat like that. Like, it's
Just
no
to
discussion
fight.
anymore. And
I
it's
showed
so,
you what I
yes,
got for literally
Lauren,
just simple posts. I don't know.
it's
Yeah, I told you
terrible.
yesterday. Someone called me like a grifting loser after I stated, well, no one's seen Karen hit John, but no one's seen him go in the house. Someone's like, you grifting loser, and they blocked me. And I was like, okay.
Okay, but if you say your opinion, it's wrong. But then if you don't say your opinion, then people are like, well, why don't you just say it? Well, why won't you just say one way or the other? Why are you not judging? And it's like,
No, I don't think you should, and people in general, I don't think you should let these people
no.
stop you from saying what you think and what you feel. If you need a break, for your own mental health, I think you should take it. But I definitely don't think that anyone should be intimidated by fake people on the internet.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Can you help me
So, guys,
understand something? Oh, sorry. I
no,
want to
go
ask
ahead,
her a
Rachel.
question
Go
real
ahead,
quick.
Rachel. Yeah, go for it.
So Lauren, help me understand the only example I have for asking this is Turtle Boy saying like he had the credentials to be there, right? So like the media credential, whatever. So what does it take to have those credentials to be considered media to get in? Like, is that like, what's the definition you have to fall under for that?
I mean, it's state by state, but
Okay.
so I'm not actually certain for Boston, but I know in New York, you have to submit for press credentials. So I can say I'm a journalist, but I don't necessarily get to go down to Manhattan Criminal Court and watch and just walk in and see the Trump trial. If you have a press pass, which again takes a while, and there's only certain, like I think there's another submission for it coming up, which I probably missed, but I had one back at or I was submitting for one at the radio station because they wanted us to go and start covering a lot of that stuff. Or it was like during the New York City elections. But yeah, it's state by state. Aiden clearly had one.
What do you have to prove that? What do you have to prove?
I don't remember. You just list a bunch of your publications and your stories and what you cover, and it's at their discretion. But yeah, so Aiden had all of that, and then this was just based on the charges that were Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you can just be someone who like, follows trials and posts about trials and then go and say, hey,
Well, so it's interesting because I'm from New Hampshire, and I was at my parents' house during the Adam Montgomery trial, who that horrible a-hole who murdered his daughter. And I thought about going for the day. So I just emailed the Manchester, New Hampshire courts and I said, do you need a press pass? And he's like, no, just show up at whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So
yeah,
I didn't end up going, but I just wanted to know just to see.
Yeah. So Lauren, I wanted to ask you, we've been kind of talking about the investigation and some of the things that are off, in my opinion, with the investigation. So, and I don't know if you want to go here. If you don't want to, that's fine. But we've got Michael Proctor coming up shortly for testimony. And, there's these allegations, and they are allegations, you guys. I don't know that it's true or not, but there are allegations that on his phone, there are text messages that say things to the effect of, I hope Karen Read kills herself, and, things like that. So do you have any thoughts on Michael Proctor that you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't understand why people weren't really truthful about the relationships from the beginning. Number one, I mean, if it's a small town and everyone knows everyone type of thing, I think that you got to put that out there and say, well, but at this point, for someone, the Proctor, and it's not just Michael, but his sister and his wife, and you've got, I think what was it, Julie and Albert, and say, oh yeah, 67 calls between, that's not a lot. And I'm like, 67 calls, that seems like
That's a lot.
But they're all trying to minimize this. And again, me watching it, I find it very obvious. I don't know if the jury does. And, when I don't remember, it was Yannetti or Jackson at the beginning who stated that Michael Proctor was texted somebody that he was looking for nudes in Karen's phone. I mean, I'm just like, man, this is not good for the state. This does not help you at all. Nothing helps you. Nothing you've done so far helps you.
No, what blows me away.
I'm just going to say, investigating, you're a police officer investigating the death of another police officer. And like, not that, I mean, investigating a death of anyone, but if you're wanting to honor this fallen officer, and that's how you're doing it, that's what's striking to me. I mean, any investigator, but when they're talking about, like honoring John O'Keefe and his memory and his name, and we're hearing, number one, the headline today that was like the Blob, I was like, oh my gosh, like so hurtful. And then, Proctor doing this during his investigation of his death. Like, that's just so wild.
Or the fact that Brian Albert is going to a police officer's funeral in New York City that he doesn't know. But then, it's like when a fellow officer from his police force is found dead on it, it's like, I don't understand, I guess, the behavior following that. I don't understand it.
I don't get it either. And having been an investigator for years, I mean, you know that whatever you do, your conduct can be brought forth and it can be made known to people. And for him to do, if he did that, if that's on his phone, and if he said that about looking for nudes of Karen Read and so on and so forth, how in the world, as an investigator, can you not think ahead and be like, okay, what if this case actually does go to court and that comes out? And I mean, you have to think ahead. And I don't get it, you guys. It blows me away that those things are happening in this case.
Well, the people that do believe that she was framed, they believe that she was. I think their whole thing was like, well, she'll be charged with manslaughter. She'll probably do 14 to 16 months in jail and then be done with it. And maybe that's what they thought. There wouldn't be so much of like this investigation. And then, defense gets this call and is like, nope, your client didn't do it. But then, I think it was like a year or so into this, they upgraded her charges from manslaughter to murder based on some voicemails that she left him saying that she hated him or something, or they got in a fight. So it's, the whole thing, I was just like,
who was it saying, those voicemails too, about them getting, them getting that fight, or him having not come home, and she was ticked off about that or whatever. And it was so funny. Jay and Bob were talking about that. And Bob was like, man, I hope you never end up dead, to his wife. Cause he's like, cause some of the voicemails that we leave to each other, he's like, I am definitely going to jail.
Well, so I don't like, I'll admit this. Like, I haven't necessarily acted as hostile to my husband as I did in my like early 20s when we were like going out and we were, drinking and whatever. So I will say that, like, maybe she wasn't blackout drunk, but she had a few drinks, and obviously that can, we are certain types of drunks, happy, silly, angry,
Yeah.
sleepy. So maybe she's an angry drunk. I don't know, but it's true. And that's, again, the whole thing about this case. Everybody's arguing, oh, I would never do that. Oh, I would never do this. Well, I mean, well, then apply that to both sides. Apply that to both sides.
Yeah, and there's I always say in these cases where, like the child murder cases where, like with the Adam Montgomery, or whatever. It's like you'll see all these the defense try to spin thing as, oh, well, that was just a coincidence. That was just a coincidence. And you're like, okay, a couple coincidences fine, but 50? Come on. And so now it's sort of flipped in this case, and I'm seeing a lot of coincidences that point to her not having, done this. And I was like, I wonder why it's hard for me to sit here and say, well, 50 coincidences, because it's on the other side of it, right? And I'm like, that applies no matter what. So I don't know.
I just want to hear more about his injuries in detail so we can try to figure out if, like what does it, I mean, I would just, I don't know. I would have to imagine. And again, I know that I believe the defense or the feds even did an accident recon, which kind of, they have hinted at the fact that it doesn't match being hit by a 5,000-pound SUV, but we haven't seen that yet. And again, we haven't seen an actual autopsy report at all. We've just seen those sad photos. So I think
everything
that
change.
We're all just really anticipating some of the injury reports.
Yeah, some mic drops, some like not just some subjective. Oh, I
don't remember.
I looked to the right at 1:05 a.m., but after that, I remember nothing else. It's like it's so hard to know.
Yep.
Yeah,
You're right.
it's crazy.
The I don't remembers, and I looked this way, and she came out of the house this way, and that, and this. And then yesterday, oh my gosh, I mean, my head was spinning over the Life 360 testimony and data, and that is still very confusing because I think at this point, let's say it could be glitchy because you don't have great service, or you could test it out by, if you drive by your house, does it say that you're ending up there? I don't think so, but sometimes it does. So I had to kind of look through that, and I was just like, I give up. I don't know.
If you've ever watched the DoorDash car trying to find your location, and you will understand the GPS and how that's so confusing.
Wait, really? I mean, I live in the city, so I don't know.
I'll think they're literally on top of my house, but really they're across the street. So you just, I don't know how all of that works. And I'm sitting here looking at it like, where exactly are you? Are you going to hit me? What's going on? So
there have been some weird things. Like, I didn't get why would Jennifer McCabe request a screenshot of Juliana asking her brother for a ride? That is bizarre.
Weird.
Yeah, it is.
Completely bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Bob Cousins, and Bob, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. He's asking a question here, and I just kind of wanted to comment on it real quick. He said, so far we've seen one pick of the injuries. Okay, why didn't the Commonwealth lead with the forensics? I think so. My take on that is, and I see where you're coming from, Bob, but I think what they're hoping to accomplish there, in my opinion, by doing it later in the game, is they want to finish with what they consider to be some of the stronger stuff. I think if they had started earlier with it, it might get lost in the shuffle. And then you have all these witnesses coming in that are saying, I can't remember, I don't know. And it really kind of weakens the whole piece, if that makes sense, in the eyes of the viewers and the jurors. So my take is that's why they're doing it, because they're hoping to come in with that bazooka and be like, boom, here we go.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. You're saying, why did the Commonwealth just come in with all these witnesses who don't remember anything? Because it makes everybody kind of look,
I know.
Okay, yeah, I can see that too. I feel like the defense has something that they've hinted at something that they have that will indicate a fight. I don't know if you heard that today, but when Alan Jackson was explaining as to why these videos should be shown, and I thought he was very convicting in what he said, where he's like, you don't get to dictate the facts of this case, Lally. You don't get to do that. Like, he basically said, we will show, evidence. And he didn't say that verbatim, but that John was in a fight. So I'm like, all right, well, let's see it. Let's see it.
Mhm.
I think I agree. I think all of this subjective, and I don't remember, and differing timeline. I think at the end of all of these people that were at the party, at the house, at the bar, whatever, I think they realize that it's going to be a little bit confusing. It's going to be daunting. It's going to be tedious. The jury's going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know, it's going to be a little brain scattering. And so they don't want to leave them off with that. They want that to all be lingering in the background when they present the forensics. And I think they want the forensics to be, like you said, like this is it. Remember
is the bazooka.
this.
Yes.
Yeah, remember this. If you don't get all that other stuff, if you want that to be a distant memory, remember this.
That's a good point. Really
good. Because if
point.
they started with the BAM and then they did all these people, it would be like, oh my God.
I know, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
it's going to get lost.
They're getting pretty brutal. I'm just like, okay. I am interested though in Jennifer McCabe and how they are, if they're going to bring anyone in from Cellbrite, because that's just been the 2 a.m. search, man. I mean, that's also where this whole thing started with them. So
someone brought up a really good point to me today, and I was like, duh. They said, so if you're looking out the window and you see, you're calling John, you're giving him turn by turn directions. You're looking out the window, you see him sitting there, you see the car sitting there, you see whatever these marks on the ground, whatever, you see him saying, they never come in the house. Were there any calls later to be like, hey, what happened? Where'd you guys go? Or are you here?
I
Did
do,
anyone
I
follow
can
up?
pull up. It's funny. I'm using my computer and my phone. I have a call log somewhere that I can definitely pull up. And I can see if there was, but that's a really good point. Why wouldn't you say, where are you?
Just drop it after you're on the phone giving all of these directions on how to get there. You'd be like, wait, man, did you get lost? Where are you? And if you saw the car out there and they left, wouldn't you be like, hey, is everything okay?
Yeah, totally. And like I said, I'm really interested in, I guarantee you Alan Jackson's going to cross-examine Jennifer McCabe. And if it's anything like what he did to Brian Albert, it's not going to be good. It's going to be pretty painful to watch, because Brian Albert, I was like, oh my gosh, within the first minute, he caught him being like, oh no, I didn't talk to, the whole thing. When's the last time you spoke with Lally? And he claimed years ago, and it was like 2 weeks ago.
It was actually yesterday. Yeah.
I was like,
And so, I think he is an experienced prosecutor. I mean, asking, his performances seemed weak, against high profile, but I think he goes pretty far back in terms of being a prosecutor.
He does. I actually researched that today. And Enzo, thanks for being here, by the way. I was just typing an answer there to you, but now we'll just address it verbally. So I think he's been there, I believe, 18 years. He doesn't handle just cases like this. He handles just other general stuff. My understanding is that he handled a similar case where there was a vehicular homicide, and he ended up getting a conviction on that. He's handled some sexual abuse stuff. He's handled some civil stuff. So he kind of is a jack of all trades, if you will. That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm looking at some of my notes too. I'm like, I wrote a few things down. I'm like,
And the whole butt dial situation. Lauren Elizabeth just brought that up. I have to just say, I'm sorry, but I didn't buy
my phone is locked.
that
I don't know about yours. My phone's locked, so I can't butt dial. Even if I roll up, if it's in my bed, like he claims he sleeps in his bed in case his kids call or whatever. I have a password. It's locked. I'm not going to butt dial. I don't know.
And also, you butt dial, that call goes on forever until the other person realizes what's going on and hangs up. It doesn't hang up after you answer. It doesn't hang up.
Rachel, that's a really good point. It's probably going to go on for like 30 seconds.
You're leaving a 10-minute voicemail at that point. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm just looking, I'm kind of just, my notes essentially state that nothing has proved to me so far that he was murdered, but nothing has proved that he's been hit by a car.
Right.
So,
me too.
That's where I just think that if it keeps up like this, it's going to go in her favor. And because how could anybody put someone in jail for life when no one heard, saw? Like, I mean, I get it. Crimes happen and people don't see. I'm not naive to that. But in this case, there seem to be so many witnesses with a similar timeline as Karen and John's arrival that how did no one see anything? How?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So,
It's certainly one of the more perplexing and confusing cases I remember in a very long time, you guys. I mean, and the thing that really blows me away is, you know, how all of these people cannot remember key things. Like, okay, like they asked Colin, you know, you got in the car with your girlfriend or your friend, not your girlfriend, with Allie. She drove you home. Who else was in the car? I do not know that. Where did you sit? I do not know that. I mean, I can tell you guys from years ago who was in a car with me when my wife and I went somewhere. I mean, those are things that you just remember. And I think part of it may be that they have just been, you know, coached, if you will, and prepped by the state to say these things, which is totally normal. But it just looks weird to me. So,
You know,
right,
and
very normal,
yeah.
but yeah.
yeah.
And I've been in my 20s, okay? We've all been in our 20s. We've all been in college. I am sorry, but it's not even just this case. You will never convince me that some 20-some-year-old person involved in this kind of a situation is not talking about this to everyone and is not looking up everything they possibly can about this case. You can't, I don't care. I have no evidence to prove that, but you will not convince me.
I was pretty disappointed when they didn't begin the cross-examination of Colin yesterday, because I was like, you got to do that because they're going to talk. I mean, I don't really buy that nobody spoke overnight. I also don't buy that. And I don't remember who said this, but like, I think it was the earlier Julie Albert talking to maybe Courtney Proctor the morning before Karen was arraigned at 8 a.m. for 30 something minutes. And they're like, did you talk about KarenRead and her arraignment? And
no,
I don't know. I don't remember. And it's like, I mean, of course, I'm sorry. Of course you did.
I know.
Of course you did. Like,
exactly.
That is just like, whether it's for 30 seconds, like, you know, of course you brought it up.
I'd be like, well, that's abnormal. But you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, no, we're not supposed to talk about that. And I always look at people and are they rule followers or not? You know, these people aren't rule followers. They aren't. Even the cops aren't.
Hardened Boston, you know.
Yeah.
I'm from New Hampshire. I'm from the area. I mean, Boston girls, like, they're known for, you know, walking down the street in a hoodie in 15-degree weather, carrying a 30-pack of beer. Like, they're just hardcore. They're not gonna, it's a bit, I don't ever want to accuse anyone of perjuring when I don't know myself exactly. But what got me again is going back to Katie McLaughlin. And when she said, do you know who her dad is and who her family is? And she said no. And then he said objection. And then Canoni said sustained. I was just like, of course
really?
She knows. You're in a graduating class of 200 people. You're in the same friend circle. Let's say that friend circle is 15 people tops. Tops. That's how many I've counted in those photos. You're telling me you don't know who the girl's dad that's a cop is? No. And I had, you know, when Jennifer Coffendaffer and I thought we had a very civil discourse about some of the things I had questions on and whatever. She had retweeted something I said about Katie McLaughlin and saying that she believed Katie McLaughlin. And I was like, and that's totally fine. In the back of my mind, I was just thinking like, oh no, this is a reason for trolls to come after me. I was waiting for it, you know, because she has so many followers, whatever. And I was actually shocked that most people agreed that most likely you're going to know the girl's dad who's law enforcement. So,
in a small town with that many connections, you've been several places with her. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And people don't, my mom,
like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, my mom told me some things like in my late 20s that I never knew about her or whatever. And I remember being like, how come you've never told me this? She was like, because the first thing you would have done is run to your friends to tell them in your early 20s is when you were I was like, yeah, true, valid. I
Yeah, and
totally would have.
like for me, it's not about Katie McLaughlin being a part of like a 50-person conspiracy. It's about,
Right.
is she a credible witness? That's
Right.
all. Where it's
Exactly.
like, if you're going to allow them to talk about getting harassed, why can't the jury see that this girl's like, I don't know, I guess I know her. You stayed in a house with her, a vacation house with her. How do you, like, what? I mean, I'm just like, how is that not, it just doesn't make you credible.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's
totally.
all,
yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
It's almost like they're afraid to actually step up and say, yeah, I know that person. Right. Because I don't know if they think it's going to make them look bad or what, but you just got to go. You got to be honest, and then let them deal with it on rebuttal or cross or whatever.
Well, they're making it a way bigger deal than it is, and by being defensive. But also, I can see what they're doing too. I've testified many times, and I find myself doing it. When an attorney asks a question, where they're going with it, right?
Yeah.
So what they're trying to get you to say, and you have to remember, like, it's not your job to anticipate what they're wanting to get out of you. It's your job to tell the truth, to just give the straight up answer. And then if the other attorney is smart and good, then they'll cross and they'll get out of you what the detail is on that. But it's hard when you're like, I want to make sure they have the whole context.
Yeah.
It's the attorney's job to make sure that happens. And if they don't, it's not your fault. You know what I mean? It's very hard as a witness when you know a true story or what's right or where they're going and you don't want them to go there. It's very hard as a witness not to try to control some of that, and that's even as an expert witness. So I can understand as, like just a fact witness that it's very hard. And when it's about your family and something that happened to you, that's really tough, but it makes them look so much worse. It makes them look like there is something to hide,
That's true. That's so true.
It's like, well, why are you being cagey about this? Like, just say, yeah, I went to the beach with her. Yeah, she's so-and-so's friend. Yes, I've taken pictures with her. Like, what's it to you, kind of, like.
Exactly. Just admit it. Be like, yeah, we run in the same friend circle. And then, like I said, I don't know. No, I'm at a loss for words, but if you were to just say that, nobody would just automatically say, oh, yep, you're part of a conspiracy. No, they would think nothing of it. They'll think more of it when pictures are introduced.
And you've just lied.
Yeah.
And you've acted.
Drawing attention.
Yeah. Why? Oh, so I have a question here coming from a mysterious source. But anyway, I have a question for you, Scott, about how what's your take on why so many of these people weren't interviewed until a year later? And even the one guy was interviewed the week before he testified.
Yeah.
I can't remember who that was, but
somebody.
somebody.
Her boyfriend, I think. Yeah.
So my take on that, and I'm glad you asked me that, Rachel, my take on that is this. Okay, you have a dead body on the front lawn. You have multiple people that were at the house that night that may know something, may not know something. You need to make sure that those people, in my opinion, get interviewed within probably 48 to 72 hours. I mean, it's so critical because by not doing that, if there is something shady going on, it allows them to get their story straight, and then memories fade. And I don't know why they waited so long to interview some of these people. That is part of this case that just blows me away. I hesitate to say it's sloppy, but honestly, you guys, it kind of is. I mean, you can't wait a year and a half to interview a victim or excuse me, a witness on a dead body case. And
some of the feds interviewed these people before the cops did.
I know.
Well,
so do you think that they
to be fair, I think that is because she was arrested a few days after, and this is where people who think she's guilty, they'll say Alan Jackson stated at the arraignment she didn't mean to do it. This was not of malicious intent. She didn't mean to. And then they changed their whole thing after they got that call. So she was ready to kind of be like, not guilty because maybe I hit him, but I didn't mean to. And he was saying she's not, she didn't do it on purpose. And so, in my opinion, that is possibly why.
Maybe.
However, the people that were directly involved that night, which is everybody at that house, and I don't was Tristan Morris. He picked her up. So I guess, yeah, wait, never mind. He picked her up from the house. So he should have been interviewed. But yes,
correct.
Everybody at that house, I believe you're correct, should have been interviewed within 24 to 48 hours. And yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I'm just trying to think now. There was so many people coming and going from the house. So,
but like once you're saying once they made
back,
you're thinking so like once they made the arrest, you're saying you think that maybe they thought there wasn't a need to interview people anymore? Is that what you're?
Well, I was thinking that, but then going back to Tristan Morris did pick up Caitlin, so he was there. So he should have been interviewed. You're absolutely right. That everybody involved coming and going from that house should have been interviewed within 48 hours because there was a fatality that occurred. Whether it was criminal, accidental, whatever, everybody should have been involved or interviewed. So, yeah, no, you're right. I couldn't recall if Tristan Morris was at the house, but he said he picked Caitlin up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the very beginning, they even said they didn't feel they had PC to go in the house, which I'm sorry, you have a deceased person on the front lawn. You got PC to go in that house and interview those people and separate them and interview them separately, not at a big one round table interview, that sort of thing. I feel like they kind of, Bob Cousins made a really interesting comment a second ago. He said he has seen cases where they get tunnel vision on one person, and they go down that road. And that's absolutely true. And I think that, I don't know why, but I think that maybe they didn't consider the possibility that something weird might have happened in that house and they just didn't go down that road. I'm not saying something did happen in that house. I don't know, but they still should have looked at that in the essence of a good investigation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Too bad.
One other thing that I wanted to talk about, I know we have to stop at 4. Are we good, Lauren?
Yeah, I got about 5 minutes.
Okay. So a lot of people are saying like, this like 50-person conspiracy, which again, I'm not convinced that is like an actual conspiracy. I mean, I feel like there could be a third completely different way this could have happened that we just don't know because this investigation sucks and like, who knows? But I was thinking about that and they were saying, oh, all these kids and everybody, like, how could you possibly get all these kids involved? I think that the least difficult people to get on board are the kids. And we're saying kids. I mean, they were in their 20s. Some of them were in their 20s. But in that time in your life, getting into that kind of trouble is major. And your perspective on the world is very narrow. You don't have a big picture, really, that you're looking at. It would take one adult to say, you do not want your name associated with this. This will ruin your career. This will ruin your life. If they were ever to find out that you were even here, or you saw this, or you whatever, you need to keep your mouth shut. That's all it would take to say to any of those kids. And if they said, if it got to the point where they're like, and your mom and dad could be arrested, and your brother could be put in jail, or that would be all it takes. It would not be that hard.
But I also think that you don't, like, I think I mentioned this earlier, you don't really need all these people to be involved.
Yeah, you don't.
I mean, I think that, I don't know if the kids knew anything because sometimes you listen to your parents and whatever they say, you want to believe because they're your mom and dad. And
you're like, that's what happened. This is what happened. It's what they said. And you just go, absolutely.
And I love my mom and I trust my mom and so
I would never imagine they'd do something wrong like that. So no.
Exactly. But like thus far, I haven't seen any evidence that proved that anyone murdered John O'Keefe, including Karen with her car.
Yeah.
So I'm baffled. All I've seen is a lot of reasonable doubt. A lot of witnesses remember weird things, but not things that I maybe would remember, but that's just me, and everybody can argue what they remember and what they wouldn't.
You're wrong.
So, yeah, I get that. So, and it's so funny. I deleted this from a tweet that I just did, but I couldn't figure out. I don't know if you noticed this, but I was like, is Colin Albert wearing the same shirt that he wore?
Yes.
Is he? Or so I put it side by side, and then I deleted it, so I just was like, whatever. But I only thought that was relevant because in the videos they showed of Snapchat, Alan Jackson said, so these are two separate occasions. And he's like, it could have been the same night. And he's like, but you're wearing two different shirts. And he's like,
Oh,
well,
I change my shirt a lot.
and then I was like, but isn't it the same shirt from yesterday? I was like, but
Right.
you changed it with, I don't know. It could be nothing. And I could be totally wrong. And he could have the same shirt in different shades, but the shades were like super similar. But I
There's
was
5
like,
of the same shirt.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to leave this one out and just forget it. Cause I'm like,
I
I
did
don't
see
feel
that.
like
Though.
I need
So
to.
we're gonna.
Yeah.
That's a great note to end on. I love
It
the
is.
levity.
It
I love the
is.
levity. I've forgotten to say this. Please like the video if you're
Yes.
watching. Please like and subscribe. I never thought from back in the days when my kids used to watch videos of people opening eggs and seeing what's inside of them and going like and subscribe. So I never thought I'd be on here ever saying something like that. But like and subscribe, guys.
Same here. And I just want to thank also, first of all, I want to thank you, Lauren, for coming on. And we really want to have you back
Very
on
cool.
again. This has been great.
Mhm.
Secondly, I want to thank all of our audience today, and we have some new people popping in again. So thank you guys so much. Please spread the word on us, and we appreciate every single one of you that are here. And
totally.
again, thanks to Lauren so much.
Yes, we appreciate you,
guys.
Lauren.
I'm sorry for my technical difficulties on my phone and everything. It's the
nobody even knows except for us,
All
and we won't tell.
Yeah, we won't tell.
Okay. Well, I just did. So thanks, guys.
Okay.
Good. Thanks.
Bye,
Bye,
Lauren.
everybody.
Thanks, Lauren.